Before we do jump in today, I want to take a look at today's agenda so you know what's going on in this info session. Obviously, I did an introduction. Part of this introduction, after we talk through the agenda, will be talking about what the Boston Cannabis Equity Program is in general, and this grant funding that we typically did through the Boston Cannabis Equity Program, but then what this particular grant opportunity is. And then we'll have Peter Meacham, who is our community grant making coordinator in our procurement department, walk us through Wise Hive, which is our grant making portal. And so this is where you apply and where the application lives, etc. So he'll walk us through all of that and how to get to it, how to use it, and how to apply within that portal. Then I will take us through the application itself and its requirements. What to include, what does a successful application look like? And each of these sections will have Q&A, as you can see listed here. Now, I want us to just shift gears a little bit. We'll talk about what the Boston Cannabis Equity Program is itself, and grant funding, like I stated. So the Boston Cannabis Equity Program is designed to promote equitable participation in Boston's cannabis industry, right? By supporting individuals and businesses from communities disproportionately impacted by cannabis prohibition. It provides financial resources, programming, and technical assistance to help equity applicants navigate both the licensing process, grow their businesses, and thrive in a regulated market. But it also helps those that are pre-licensing process. So those thinking about entering the industry, but have not thought about, what type of license they want or started an application at all. Previously, through this program, we offered grant funding directly from the city to applicants for a wide range of purposes, and those included equipment purchases, working capital, startup costs, build out, and more. However, our grant amounts were capped at $49,000, or basically $49,999, just under $50,000. And our grant process needed to be changed based on different legalities around the program and how we were distributing the money to the businesses. So now we've restructured the grant opportunity to the grant opportunity we will be talking about today. So this grant opportunity is specifically looking for a nonprofit or businesses that have a fiscal sponsor, which is someone who technically could lend you their nonprofit status, to develop a comprehensive program, in a sense, that will use this funding, which is $350,000, to support eligible equity applicants and existing equity businesses in addressing financial and technical challenges. The program that you design or pitch in your application should include direct access to funding sources like grant opportunities or other initiatives designed to help equity applicants and licensees overcome barriers and achieve long-term success. I will stop there. I just want to give people an opportunity to ask questions about the program itself. But if it's about the grant application or how to apply, I ask that you hold those questions until we get to those sections. If you do have a question, please feel free to just come off mute. You don't have to type it in the chat. Feel free to come off mute. We want to be engaging and just conversational in this session. It's not like a stiff presentation. So I will open the floor for a few seconds if anybody has any questions about anything I just said. I do see a chat. So I do see a question here that says, so you have to be a nonprofit to apply. Technically, yes and no. So if you are a nonprofit, yes, you are eligible to apply. If you are not a nonprofit, you will need a fiscal sponsor, which is a nonprofit organization who signs up basically to say, we are lending this other business or entity our nonprofit status. And we'll talk more about that in details. There is an FAQ that I included that also does answer this question in more detail about a fiscal sponsor in the nonprofit status. So we'll talk more about that. So the answer to that question is generally yes, you have to be a nonprofit, but you can have a fiscal sponsor, meaning that you technically don't have to be a nonprofit. There is another question here. Is the sense that only one nonprofit will be selected or a few? Only one nonprofit will be selected. And so, depending on how many applications we get, only one will be selected. And they will receive up to the $350,000 individually.
Can
And
you provide some,
sorry, go ahead.
sorry, can you provide some examples of what a program looks like?
Yes.
Because it was a pretty thick description. So I wanted to kind of break that down a little bit.
And I'm sorry, who is speaking?
My name is Danielle, sorry.
Oh, hi, Danielle. Okay, yes, I will get there. I do want us to have time to.
Okay, good. Yeah,
No,
absolutely.
yeah, no problem. I will definitely walk us through the application and exactly what we're looking for in terms of programmatic response. But I want us to have time to make sure that we know where to access the application and walk through WiseHive itself. So I will definitely come back to that question. We do have another question in the queue here. It's just how many nonprofits will be selected? And again, only one. If there are no more questions just about the general, one more came in. Will portions of the 350,000 go to grants TA for the cannabis businesses, or is the nonprofit responsible for having funds to give grants and TA to the businesses? The nonprofit is responsible for distributing these funds in a way that they propose, which I am hoping will include grants and technical assistance. And we will talk more about that in the last segment of this info session. I am going to, let me see. Yeah, I'm going to stop there just to make sure that Peter has enough time to get through WiseHive. And again, this is a walkthrough of the portal itself in which you will be applying, how to use it, how to set up your organizational structure. But Peter, I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Shekia. Hi, everybody. My name's Peter Meacham. I'm the Community Grant Making Coordinator. My role is housed within the Procurement Department at the City of Boston, and I've been working with Shekia on launching this grant application for this grant program. And I'm just going to show a slide deck that's available for all applicants that are submitting applications or requests for funding, specifically for grant funding from the City of Boston. There is a separate contract bid process for service or good contracts. So this is a platform that I'm going to show that's exclusively for grant funding and grant programs from the city. I'm also going to add in the chat right now a link to this set of Google Slides so you can follow along the presentation as well as I share it on the screen. So this presentation that I'm sharing is linked in the application itself. It's also on the City of Boston's website in a couple of places. So this is a comprehensive guide for applicants submitting requests for funding. It shows how to create a profile in the city's grant-making platform, which is managed by a software company called WiseHive. It also shows the entire process if you are selected for an award, how to accept your award, submit required documents, such as grant agreements, as well as how to submit reporting requirements. But we're not going to focus on those later elements today. I'm just going to show you the initial stages of using the platform and submitting an application. So before you open the application itself, when you're on the city's WiseHive platform, you'll be able to see a view of all of the currently open grant opportunities. Each opportunity will have the title of the grant program, as well as the deadline, the due date, to submit applications, and there's a preview button where you can see the application before you even create an account or build an organization profile. When you hit that preview button, you can view all of the sections of the application by selecting these view buttons on the right. You can also download a PDF preview of the entire application. What I'm showing you in this demo is just some slides that show kind of a standard demo program. This won't show specific features of the Cannabis Equity Fund application. Shekia is going to be showing those details in a little bit. But each program on this platform has a program information page, which has the key information you need to know, such as the funding that's available, key dates like the due dates, when award notifications will be made, as well as additional eligibility criteria will be included here. When you hit the apply button on any program, if this is your first time using the platform, you'll be prompted to create a login account. And this is where you'll be entering your name, your email address, and creating a password for the first time that you use this account. If you've already used this platform before, you've submitted applications to the City of Boston for your organization or your business or your group, you can select instead, I already have an account, and log in with your credentials that you created. But if it is your first time, you're going to enter that information here, select create an account, and you're going to be prompted to verify the email address immediately following that after selecting create an account. You'll need to verify your email address with a 6-digit verification code. And the email that you receive with that verification code is going to look just like this. The subject is going to say verify your City of Boston email address. It'll have the City of Boston logo and city grant making information. And then that verification code is going to be just at the bottom of that email. And that's the code that you're going to want to enter into that email verification page. Once you do that, you're going to be prompted to build an organization profile so that you have an organization to represent when you submit requests for funding. If this is your group or organization's first time using the WiseHive platform, I would recommend using this bottom button here that says create new organization so you can build all the details manually. If you believe that you're representing a group or a business or nonprofit that has used this platform before with the City of Boston, you can search by the name or by the nonprofit's tax ID number and search existing profiles. But I think for the most part, this is a relatively new platform for applicants to the city. So I would encourage you to use create new organization. The organization profile has a handful of required fields that we're asking all applicants to submit. You only need to complete this organization profile once. The first time you do it, it saves your information and you can use it to apply to any other grant programs that you're eligible for at the city. So the first of those fields that you're filling out is your organization's name. We are asking that if you have a tax ID, tax nonprofit status, that you're entering the organization name exactly as it appears on your tax documents. If this is a group or a business you're representing that already has a City of Boston supplier vendor ID, we're asking that you maintain the same name or the same details throughout the profile as well. If you're new to the City of Boston's supplier portal and supplier vendor ID process, there is some guidance in the organization profile that appears. I encourage you to read through this, click on any of these links that might be new to you. And if you do already have a supplier vendor ID, you can enter that ID in the profile here. A vendor ID is not required to request funding from the city. However, if you are awarded funding, you will need to obtain a supplier vendor ID in order to have your payment processed. There is a field to indicate your nonprofit status. If you do have tax exempt status, you can indicate that there and you'll be prompted to enter your tax ID. If you do not have tax exempt status, indicate that you don't and indicate that you'll be working with a fiscal sponsor. The next couple of sections that are required are basic contact information. Again, if you already have a supplier vendor ID, I would encourage you to include the same contact information here that matches your supplier profile in the supplier portal. There is a section for your address, a section for your organization or business's website, a mission statement or a description of what your business does is required, as well as an annual budget and your FTE number, which is the number of full-time equivalent employees that work for your business or organization. There's an optional question here to indicate leadership demographics. This is not required. This is something that we collect at the city for reporting purposes, but it is not required. And then there's an attachment section. So in this place, we have organization operating budget is a document that you can upload. It is not required. If you indicate that you are a tax-exempt nonprofit organization, you will be required to provide the documents such as a nonprofit certification and your IRS form W-9. If you're working with a fiscal sponsor, do not upload your fiscal sponsor's tax information here. We'll be collecting that later in the application. After you do that, you're going to select Create Organization, and then your profile will be created. I'm going to pause here to see if I can answer any questions for folks that came up about specifically this process of creating an organization profile in WiseHive.
I do have a brief question, if I may. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Leonard.
Yes, I'm Leonard. Well, I do have a profile in there. I'm all in there already. I'm good. Um, with the response will be communicated via the system or via the email. Let's say if if I win, if I get the grant, for example.
So if you already created an organization profile
Yeah.
and you verified your email address, notifications from the system that let you know whether or not your application's been submitted or the status of your application, if you've been awarded or if you've not been selected, those will be sent to the email address that you use
Gotcha.
to verify your account and start building your organization and profile.
Okay, makes sense. Gotcha. Thank you.
There is details in here in the frequently asked questions document, as well as guidance in this slide deck that recommends the email server is no reply at
Hmm.
zendesk.com. I would recommend just adding that email address to your contact list or to your safe
Okay.
senders list so it doesn't end up in your junk or your spam folder.
What was that email again? I think I know what you're talking about. I have to.
Yeah, it's no reply.
Yeah, no reply. I think I have that somewhere. Okay,
I
perfect.
will
All right.
drop it in the chat right now.
All right, thank you.
Excuse me, it's ZenGen HQ is the server,
Cool, got it. All right, thanks.
of course. All right, I'm going to share my screen again and start showing you the actual process of getting to the application and submitting your request for funding. So at this point, you've verified your email address, you have an account, and you've built your organization profile. You can head to that link that's available from the Office of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion for the application. And again, you'll be brought to this program info page that has all the basic information and eligibility requirements you need to read before submitting an application. And you can click this green apply button in the upper right-hand corner. Every time you submit an application into WiseHive, you will be asked to indicate which organization you're applying on behalf of. In this case, for this demo, we just have the one profile that we've just created. And so we're going to want to select that organization. And again, every time you submit an application for funding, you have the opportunity to update the profile information. In this case, we've just created a brand new profile, so we don't really need to update anything. But if you do return to this platform to request funding in other applications, you have that opportunity. If nothing needs to be changed, you can just hit Save Profile and continue at the bottom of the profile page. And then you'll be brought to that page again that shows you a preview of the entire application. Each of these rows is its own section of the application. You can fill this out in any order you want. I think it makes the most sense to do it from top to bottom, but you can hit any of these start buttons and fill out those sections individually. The first section of most applications for funding at the city on this platform begin with additional guidance. So there's instructions here, helpful guidance about filling out the application, that information about the supplier vendor ID is here. And if there's any required documents that are needed for you to download before submitting the application, those will be linked here as well. Throughout the application, we do include the contact information for the staff that are responsible for administering the program. In this case, Shekia's information will be included both at the bottom of this guidance section, and it will also be included at the top of every section of the application. Most of the fields and questions in the application are self-guided. There's additional guidance if necessary, but you fill each question out one at a time. As you go through the application, you can either click Save Draft and Exit at the bottom of the page to save the content of that section, or you can click Next. That'll also save the contents that you've just entered into this section, and Next will advance you to the next section of the application. The final section of the application is a submission certification where we're asking you to enter your name just to verify that you understand all the terms of the program, you understand what's expected of you if you're selected for funding, and that everything you've submitted in the application is correct. If there's any sections of the application that you missed or questions that you missed or anything that's formatted incorrectly, or if you exceeded the word limits for anything, those sections will appear marked with a little red tag on the side, and you will be unable to submit the application until those sections are completed or you fix the formatting error. But once you do fix those things, you can click Submit. Before you click Submit, you can click Review and review the entire draft of what you've submitted as well. You can also download a PDF of that draft before you submit it. Next to the word application here on the left, there's a little download button, download icon. But if you hit submit, you'll be given this notice that your application has been submitted. There is no way to edit the application after you've submitted it. If you do think that there's an error you've made, you can contact Shekia, and there is a way that she can help guide you through correcting anything that was entered by mistake. But for the most part, once it's submitted, your application is saved in the system. You can navigate from here to any other applications that you've submitted in this platform. But for now, for this demo, there's just this one that's been submitted here with the grant program name, the name of the organization that you've applied under, and it'll say submitted here under the status of that application. And then just to confirm, if you've submitted an application, you'll receive this notice from that same no reply at zengenhq.com email. It'll say submission confirmation for the City of Boston's Cannabis Equity Grant Program. And I'll pause here again just to see if there's any questions that came up about that specific set of instructions.
If no questions, we will jump right into the actual application itself. But thank you so much, Peter. And if questions do come up, during the rest of this time. I'm pretty sure Peter will be here. If not, I can field all the questions, but I will also be able to, add them to our FAQ. It's a running FAQ. So any questions that come up regarding Wise Hive as a portal itself, Peter is still here and on to answer. And I will be able to get those questions over to him if necessary, but we'll be adding all questions to our FAQ. There is a question here. Does the company fill out their application or the nonprofit has to submit themselves? So if you are a company using a fiscal sponsor, it's really up to you, but I would say you would be filling it out because you would be the company, receiving the award and doing the work under the application. But Peter, if you wanted to jump in there, I believe that is, you should be filling it out.
That's correct. If you're working with a fiscal sponsor with nonprofit status, you are the one that is still applying for funding. And when we get to the step of processing payments, we'll work with the fiscal sponsor's information to make sure they receive the funding. But you will be the one administering the requirements of the grant program.
Perfect. I think that is the only other question relevant to the Wise Hive portal itself. So we'll shift gears here right into the application. I know there's questions that already live in the chat. Again, thank you so much, Peter. Super comprehensive. The portal itself is very intuitive. It's very easy to apply within it. So if questions do come up again, I will get those over to Peter and his team, but we'll also be adding those questions. And if questions again come up while we're talking, please just pop them in the chat or let me know, and Peter's still around to answer. So I'm actually going to share now my screen just to show you the easiest way to access Wise Hive. We included a link and I'm going to share it here in the chat. We included a direct way to apply to the application from the equity program's web page. And I'm going to share this web page with us now so that you have and you can see all the application resources that live there. And I'm going to go through a couple of them, including the application itself and all of the questions that are included on the application to give you a sense of what we're looking for and what would a successful applicant look like. So here is the equity webpage. There's information about the page, about the program itself. But then we're here where it details the opportunity. All of the important dates are listed here. It launched on January 14th. We're having our info session today. The application deadline is February 13th. There will be a review period over the rest of February, and then the award notification should go out in March. This also includes a link for you to apply online. When you click it, it will take you directly to Wise Hive. And so this is the easiest way to access Wise Hive. And so it takes you right to the program application and that initial page that Peter was referencing about the program guidelines, all of the information relevant to the program itself, the grant funding amount, the information to reach me, again, the timeline and important dates, and then all of the rest of that guidance regarding application instructions, the supplier portal and vendor IDs, and then any other required documents. Additionally, on the website page that I shared with you, there are application resources. We're going to get into one of these, which is the equity grant application preview. Again, Peter referenced that this also lives within Wise Hive when you go to apply. And before you even apply, you can preview the application and download this. We've also provided it here on our website for you to access it there. There are FAQs. It's a running FAQ. There's a number of questions here already that I anticipated would be asked. And there will be a number of questions that I add based on today's info session. So there's more, insight into some of the questions that were asked, especially around fiscal sponsors and the grant amount and how it should be distributed there. Additionally, there's the guide, a program proposal guide, and there are several questions within the application itself. We'll see them, but this pulls out the proposal questions specifically. All the other questions are relevant to like background information, and there are specific proposal questions that you need to answer regarding what you're proposing, and we'll go through those as well. And then there is the guide for using WiseHive. So if you still don't know how to access WiseHive, or you lost the link that Peter provided you, it also lives here on our website. So just wanted to make sure that you know where and how to access this. This is just additional information. And just to please note that this grant is for nonprofits or those with fiscal sponsors, the deadlines, and then if you have any questions, that you would contact me. Now we will just jump into the application itself. This is a direct preview of the application from WiseHive. This is exactly how it looks. Of course, you'll be in the portal itself, but this is exactly how it looks. I'm just going to present this so you can see it. And there's guidance as soon as you open the application, as what you've seen Peter go through. And it's pretty straightforward. However, these are those background questions again: your name, your organization, applicant information. You just want to fill this all out. Pretty straightforward again, and Peter just went through that. So what we'll get to is the meat of the application, and this is your project proposal, project budget, and project narrative. These two sections will be what the review of your application will mainly be based on. So make sure to read each section of this carefully and respond to each part of it. The project proposal section that we're looking at right now has 3 sections. It has a total of 7 questions. In 2 of those sections have 3 questions each, and one of those sections just has 1 question. Well, we're going to get into each of those questions right now, and what we're looking for. And so I will hold questions until I'm done, but just make sure you put them in the chat as we go, or just remember what you want to ask. But the first section that you see here is organizational details. It has these 3 questions: mission, goals, and community impact, staff and program management, partnership and collaborations. The second section is your programmatic details. This is your program overview and services, your program timeline, and equitable service distribution. The third section is data collection, transparency, and impact. And it just asks about your data collection, transparency, and impact. I am going to open our project proposal guide. It also lives within the in the application itself. But let me open this so you can see this. And are you seeing the guide, or are you still seeing the application?
We can see the guide.
Perfect. So in this guide, it's just a document that lists all of the questions out, just to give you some guidance on what they are, and so that you're not in the application filling it out completely before you're sure. We definitely suggest filling this out, making a copy of it, filling it out, and then copying and pasting your answers into the application. But again, like Peter said, you could type things into the application and save it and come back to it. And so feel free to do it however you like. But it may be easier to just answer the questions in a document and then copy and paste. The first question in organizational details asks you to provide an overview of your organization's missions and goals, highlight how they relate to equity in the cannabis industry, include a description of the communities you primarily serve, specifying neighborhoods if applicable. And if your proposal intends to outreach to communities that you do not currently primarily serve. What is your strategy to do so? So this is basically giving us some background information on your organization and how it's relevant, and your understanding of equity in the cannabis industry. Very high level background information. It has a 350 word limit. These word limits are intuitive in the application itself. It will not let you type more than 350 words. So you will see this word count within the application itself next to each question, and the box in which you're filling itself in will count down the number of characters that you used, or the word count, until you have reached that limit. The second question under this section asks you to describe the staff members that you will be using as part of your organization that will be dedicated to managing your proposed program, including what their roles and responsibilities will be, and identify who will be responsible for processing applications, and how your organization will ensure that you have adequate resources to handle the volume of applications or inquiries that come in. So here we just want to know who's on this team, what will they be doing specifically for this proposed project, and who is assigned to reviewing the applications, and how many people that will be, and how will they be prepared for the number of applications you may receive, or who will be manning the inquiries. We want to see, like, is there going to be an email address that they should reach out to? How will this be managed? The third question here is just to detail any partnerships, and sorry, that second question has a 300 word limit. But the third question is partnerships and collaborations, and we just want you to highlight or detail any partnerships or collaborations your organization has in place already to support the success of this proposal and program participants. And so if you don't partner with anyone, that's fine. You won't be documented for that. We just need to know, and we need some sort of justification of why, without any partnerships or collaborations, you are equipped to handle this project. And so that's all we want to see there. That has a 150 word limit. And that's it in the first section. These I will also go through in terms of how they will be scored. So mission goals and community impact in this first section will be scored the highest. This will be a total of 20 points, with the first question being worth 10 points, and the second and third question being worth 5 points each. So mission goals and community impact is 10 points, staff and program management is 5 points, and partnerships and collaborations is also 5 points. Your programmatic details, this is the biggest section of review for your application, and it will be scored for 40 points total. We'll break those down after I go through the questions. So here, there are also 3 questions. The first question is your program overview and services. We want you here, this is the meat. We want to see a detailed description of what your proposed program is. This is very open and general. I'm not here to tell you what your proposed program is supposed to be. I'm here to just give you guidance on what we're generally looking for, but we're open to all kinds of innovative services or proposed programs that you are interested in putting forth. But we want to make sure that you're including how the services will be offered, the methods you will use to support equity applicants and businesses through this program to overcoming both financial challenges and technical difficulties or challenges. We want you to outline the criteria that will determine eligibility for these services and resources, and the application process for individuals or businesses. This is a 1,500 word limit. You don't need to use the whole thing, but just wanted to make it enough space just in case, you had a major program that you wanted to propose. But we want all of those things to be included there. And again, this is up to your own interpretation. We are not here to tell you how to distribute these funds. We are not here to make sure that you're doing it a certain way. We are interested in seeing what you have to offer. However, we are definitely interested in those who are looking to distribute these funds in a direct way to the applicants, in a financial way, whether that's they are receiving a grant directly, or technical assistance. We do have a technical assistance program already, so keep that in mind. Your second question is your program timeline. We want you here to provide a detailed timeline for your program. When will it start? When will you start accepting applications? When will the application process close? When will you be distributing your services or the funding? We want to see that all here. We want to see this timeline based on the intention that you will use these funds by September of this year. And so, that may not be, sorry, somebody's coming in. That may not be, what you had in mind, but we just want to see what you will be capable to do between now and September in terms of using these funds. We want you to include key milestones, just like I just stated, your start and end dates, major activities associated with your program, like when will the application open, etc. And be sure to outline how your timeline aligns with the goals and objectives of this project. This is a 300 word limit. The third question in this section is equitable service distribution. We want you to describe how your organization will ensure services and resources are distributed equitably among the applicants. How will you make sure that the bulk of these services or your financial assistance isn't just going to one applicant, right? We want to see how this will be equitable in your program, and we want you to include your approach to engaging or involving community stakeholders in your decision making, whether that's people in the industry themselves, the equity applicants themselves. How will you be including them in this decision making regarding your service or your funding allocation? And then additionally, we want you to just outline strategies for addressing challenges or barriers that program participants may face during the application process. So meaning like they may need translation services, or they may need someone to do an info session like this of how do they apply? What will you be initiating to help them get through the application process? Excuse me. This is a 300 word limit. Again, like I said, this is the highest scored area of your submission for 40 points total. The first section is the first question is worth 20 points. The second question is worth, I got to go back and double check these. And I'll let you know those. I just need to make sure that I have the numbers correctly because we just skewed them a little bit. But I will let you know how much those are worth each. But this is the bulk of your review, and it will be 40 points total. The last question of this section is your data collection, transparency, and impact measurement. We want you to just describe how you will collect data on the demographics of the applicants, whether that's through the application, and that will also ensure that you're distributing it equitably. But we also want you to outline the steps you will take to maintain transparency and accountability in your program, and explain the methods you will use to measure the program's impact and effectiveness. So after you've distributed the funds or technical assistance, what are your measurements for success, and how will you be measuring that? This is a 500 word limit, and this section is worth, I believe, 10 points. Where I was 10, 40, 10. We're missing something. We're missing two sections, which is your budget narrative and your budget attachment. So we'll get to those. They're not included in this because this is for your proposal questions specifically, and that budget conversation that we're having is in a separate section of the application. So I will stop there. I'm saying a lot, and I haven't checked the chat to see if anyone had any questions. And so I'm just going to go back to the application itself and see if there's any questions on the proposal aspect. I do know there was a question earlier from Grant Cohen. What is the percentage of the 350,000? Is it restricted to small businesses and grants? And what is the maximum amount for TA time? And so there is no specific percentage that is restricted to small business grants. We want to see what you think about it. There are restrictions for how much funding you can use in terms of your internal administrative process. So we'll talk about those. But in addition or outside of those fundings, that funding that you use in your budget internally, there is no specified percentage of what you must use. I would say use all of it, the remaining amount to distribute in grants and technical assistance. There's no specified amount of TA time. This is your idea that you're pitching to me. And so I cannot tell you what that should look like. And Grant, I see your hand raised, so please come off mute and let me know.
Hey, hello?
Yes, we can hear
Hey,
you.
hey, Shekia. Great presentation so far. Just a question for you. I'm with the Boston Main Streets Foundation. We're a 501c3
Yep.
organization. What's your recommendation on helping to match nonprofit organizations with, I guess, consultants or kind of for-profit businesses, in a sense that we could, pending board and maybe leadership approval, we would potentially be a fiscal sponsor, again, for a kind of a for-profit organization, or a for-profit consultant. What's your sense on maybe how that matching could take place? Thank you.
Oh, no problem. And I think you kind of started that right now. So if anyone's on this call and they're looking for a fiscal sponsor, Grant just indicated that they are interested in, maybe being a fiscal sponsor, but we haven't set up any type of matchmaking. But I do, I hear you. And so if I could think of any, I would say I will play some matchmaking. But our small business team, they keep a list um, of businesses that may be interested in a fiscal sponsor. So I will connect with them and see what that process could look like. And I'll make that introduction with you as well, Grant. That was a great question. We didn't have any type of process in place to do any matchmaking. We were leaving that entirely up to the applicant itself, but that may be a good thing to think about initiating for future iterations of this grant.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Eric, I see you came off mute. Do you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry if I am.
Oh, okay, no problem. LJ, you are also off mute. I don't know if you have a question.
Not at the moment. I must have hit by accident, but
No
there's
problem.
a lot of information. I'm just writing down notes, and it's very thorough. I appreciate your presentation. It's very good.
I have a question. Sorry. Is there a way, I know that it's only one organization that is going to be awarded the grant, but there might be a way for others on the call to work or be a part of the winning organization, if that makes sense. So once the process is done, is there a way to stay connected with everybody, just in case some might offer services that might be useful for whoever does get awarded the grant?
Yes. So Peter actually told me to say this in the beginning and I completely forgot. But if you would like to share your contact information, Grant just did in the chat, feel free to. I just don't want to give out people's information and they were like, why did you share it? So yes, feel free. You could also in the chat, if where you write and it says to everyone, you can pick people that you want to respond to directly. So if anyone is interested in, working with Danielle or Grant, you can write to them directly. Or just write your contact information in this chat. Anyone who writes in this chat, I'll send a follow-up email. I'm going to send a follow-up email to everyone anyway, containing the link to this video. I was going to say this later, but the link to this video and all the links that are provided and that we talked through today. But anyone who is interested in connecting with each other, I can just send a email to you all in which you won't be BCCs so that everyone has everybody's information. And I see a bunch of contact information coming through. So yes, feel free to connect with each other. And yes, I see the question, will we be able to share the matchmaking opportunities? Absolutely. I know we are a little bit, we have like 2 weeks until the application closes. So I will do my best to get all of the information back to people after I touch base with the small business team. But yes, I will share as many resources as possible with everyone as they come up. So just quickly back to, and I'm just manning this chat just to see if there are any more questions that I may have missed. And I know, Danielle, you asked a question earlier about the structure of the program, but I think I might have answered it by going through these questions. However, if not, and it comes back around, please let me know. But going back to the application itself, we just went over the project proposal guidance portion of this. Okay, it's just more, it's just sharing of contact information, just manning the chat. And so we're still there. Again, 7 questions in total. Two sections have 3 questions. One section just has 1 question. I am going to open 1 second. I just want to make sure I don't move on before I tell you how these are scored, so you have it in mind and you're prepared to apply. 1 second. I'm gonna let you know this right now. All right, here we are. So going back to the programmatic details section, again, I said 40 points in total. The first question is worth 20 points. The program timeline is worth 15 points. And the equitable service distribution question is worth 5 points. For data collection, transparency, and impact measurements, this question is worth 10 points. And so we have with this, what is this? 40, 60 points total for this section. The program proposal section is 60 points total. And then we have, actually it's 70 points. I'm missing something. It's 70 points, I'm sorry. It's 70 points total for the program proposal section. Yes. 20 points, 40 points, 10 points. The next section of your application is your project budget. We will talk about this in some detail. But let me just bring up this info that I want to make sure to highlight. So this is right after your program proposal. We've provided a number of guidance here. We've provided a project budget template that you should be downloading, completing, and then uploading into your budget form field below. This is some guidance. Again, I I highlighted that there are portions and percentages of the funding that you will be using and allowable for you to use basically internally, that they are all listed here. So those include salaries associated with anyone that will be a part of this, a percentage of the salary and associated benefits you are seeking, equipment and supplies or materials associated with the program, temporary space fees and or rentals for the program, transportation required for the program, advertising. They're all listed here. I won't go through them all unless you have specific questions about them. But these are the allowable uses of the funds that you can use basically for yourself in relation to administering your program. It does say if your fund request is more than $100,000, which yours should be, you should be requesting the entirety of the amount, which is $350,000. Then you will need to please download and review this form, the FB1 notice to beneficiaries, but there's nothing that you would need to do with it until or if you are selected for the award. Again, here it highlights, as I just stated, your budget attachment and budget narrative must detail how you will fully utilize the awarded funding amount of $350,000. This should also include whatever funding you will be using it from these allowable uses or internally. There are things that you cannot use the funds for, which is gift cards, rent, utilities, alcoholic beverages, and or fundraising or lobbying activities. Your budget narrative is listed here. First, it's not a question that you need to fill out. You need to upload, again, the above template. I will open it in a second and attach it here. Again, upload the budget template for your proposed project, ensuring that it accounts for the full awarded funding amount of $350,000. Here is the budget template so that you can get a look at it. It's all, populated for you, kind of an easy guide. You can add stuff to this template. You will want to make a copy. I would make a copy of this or download it and fill it out how you choose. But you will definitely want to be using this template for your budget, excuse me. I'm clicking everywhere. I have to get out of this. Hold on. For your budget form, like the one that you upload into this document, you should be using this template. Sorry, I need to get back to this section. So your budget attachment should be that template filled out and uploaded into this section, identifying how you will use the entirety of the $350,000. And I know I'm saying that a lot, and that's on purpose. Your budget narrative is basically the same thing, but this is a written explanation of your budget attachment. So we want you to detail your plan to utilize the full awarded funding amount of $350,000 and outline how the budget will be allocated among your partners, specifying the rate and number of hours used and any personnel calculations, include the dates of your program period, and ensure your narrative demonstrates how the entire funding amount will be effectively spent. Technically, it's not here in this language. I may be able to update that. It's not here in this language, but technically we want to see, again, as I outlined above, your budget narrative show us a timeline until September of this year. So even your timeline can extend after September. We want to see how you're using the funds by September. And so if you your program is until, you know, you use all the funds before September, but you'll be doing your data collection and reporting and success measurements after September, that is completely fine. But we want to see what your budget narrative is in terms of using the funding and your program dates by September of this year. There's no specific date in September, just by September of this year. This has a 1,000-word limit. Any questions on your budget attachment or your budget narrative? I'm going to check the chat. And I don't see any in the chat. These two sections are worth the remaining 40 points. I'm sorry, 30 points of your total 100 score on your proposal, which is 15 points for your budget attachment and then 15 points for your narrative, 30 points collectively. Then as you scroll down, the remainder of your application is pretty explanatory. The populations that you serve, even though we do ask that above, this is not a required section. I would love for you to fill it out, but it's not required for you to, and you just want to choose which communities your organization already serves. And this, as indicated, this is used for reporting purposes only, and it is optional. And so there's a list of neighborhoods, racial demographics, and other responses that may come out of racial demographics. Yeah, gender identity. And that is the entirety of the application. And then again, as Peter went over, you come to your submission certification screen where you just basically sign and certify that you understand the grant agreement and terms and all the other required documents that are necessary for this grant opportunity and specifically. Any questions about, and we're a little over time, so if anyone has to jump, please do. I am here to talk through additional questions about your proposals. Again, we want to see you use in the entirety of the funding, including what you'll be using internally. And I would love to see, I cannot tell you what to do, but we do have a technical assistance program already. And so feel free to absolutely include technical assistance in your programming. Absolutely. There is a question based on that. It says, from Devin, it says, you mentioned that we do already have a technical assistance program. Are there any services that are well covered that should ideally not be duplicated by this application? Completely up to you. I cannot tell you what to include in your application, but our technical assistance program is outlined on the website. We do offer engineering, legal, accounting, strategic marketing, and general business support through our technical assistance program. And so those are the key areas. And then anything else that comes along that our applicants may need. And so we are looking for both your proposals to encapsulate or one or the other, distributing these funds directly to equity applicants through financial assistance and or technical assistance or both. I do want to outline that we already have criteria for who an equity applicant is. That doesn't mean, that's how you have to identify who qualifies for your proposed project. But I do want to identify who those are and how they are eligible. What we've tended to use as qualifications when we are giving out grant funding or technical assistance. Our technical assistance criteria is different than our grant funding criteria, even though some of it is similar. So I want to shift gears again. I'm going to open this FAQ and I'm going to share the FAQ in the chat. If I haven't already, I don't think so. But there is the FAQ. Sorry, Danielle, I responded to you directly. I don't know why. But this is for everyone. There is the FAQ doc. As I add questions, they'll all be listed here from today's info session, even if they're about Wise Hive, even though Wise Hive has its own FAQ, which is also included on our website, and the guidance presentation that you saw from Peter today. So, who is considered an eligible equity applicant? And here's a list. And so we've considered an eligible equity applicant as someone or an individual or business who meets any of the following criteria. Who meets all of the following criteria. Sorry, I'm trying to move these screens out of my way. So an eligible equity applicant to receive grant funding has previously been those who have an active licensing application with our Boston Cannabis Board. They possess a letter of intent or a lease, so they already have a location. They own or are part of a group that owns a minimum of 51% of the entity. They have received an ISD refusal letter from our Boston Inspectional Services Department, also known as ISD. They have held their community meeting with our Office of Neighborhood Services, which is also known as ONS. And they satisfy at least 3 of the following eligibility criteria. So this is how the city itself identified who was eligible for grant funding. For technical assistance, this does not apply in its entirety. For technical assistance, you just have to have met 3 of these 7 criteria listed here. These are also listed on our website. We expend technical assistance to both pre-certified and certified equity applicants. They all meet at least 3 of these 7 eligibility criteria. For grant funding, we have identified it as someone who meets everything on this list in this FAQ. I will go back in and add, it must have slipped my mind, the difference between TA that we as the city consider an eligible equity applicant and or business, because it, as I stated, it differs from those who have been previously eligible from grant funding through the city. Any questions about that? Okay. How much is licensing fees with the city? Can I include it in the budget plan? That is a great question, LJ. There are licensing fees associated. I will include that in the FAQ just because I don't have all of them on hand. There are some applicants. There are some applicants on the call, but there are just initial licensing fees. Then there are renewal fees, there are application fees. So there are a number of fees associated with licensing. And so I will include those here. If you want to, you are more than, allowed to include those as coverage in what you will be supplying as part of your proposed program. Yes, you can include that in the budget plan. So great question. Kizzy, I see your question. Pitch night for cannabis. Can we use that with this grant? I'm not sure what that's related to. If you want to clarify your question, please let me.
Like competition, you know how like you said, like you use it for grant or technical support. So far as grants, could we do like a pitch night where we give out to a certain amount of people? Could that be one of the things in the grant?
You can do whatever you want. You can do, it is open to your interpretation. And I know sometimes that gets a little bit like, but what is it that you're looking for? But it is very general. We are looking for your ideas with as much guidance as we have provided. And so, yes, if you want that to be part of your proposed programming, it can absolutely be. There is a question from Danielle. Is the social equity applications open again, or when does it open? So our equity program is always open all the time. Pre-certification is different than certification. And so pre-certification is open to anyone that meets 3 of the 7 eligibility criteria. They just reach out to me and let me know. It's not a public application because then anyone will sign up, and it's very specific to Boston. And so there's no public application to join the equity program. That all just happens internally through me. So if anyone's interested or know anyone that wants to be pre-certified, they will directly reach out to me. And then certification, however, does require you to have a lease or letter of intent, an application with the city's cannabis board, and be basically a majority owner, so 51%. So pre-certification is you just meet 3 of these eligibility criteria. Certification is you meet 3 of these eligibility criteria with the application, a location, and that you are a majority owner. And then grant funding is everything that you see highlighted here on the FAQ under question number 3. That's a lot of stuff I said. So there is a question. I did see a hand first. So Jean, I'll come back to your question, but Grant, you have your hand raised.
Yes, just one follow-up, Shekia. Just the structure of the nonprofit and we'll call it the advisor group or the consultant team. The recommendation is, or I should say the requirement, if I'm understanding it correctly, is to have the nonprofit entity apply with the advisory group consultant team as a subcontractor written into the budget, outlined in the budget narrative. Is that correct? Am I maybe misunderstanding? Thank you.
No problem. It could go both ways. So if you are the nonprofit and you're interested in applying, but you do have some subcontractors or consultants that will be part of your team, yes, the nonprofit will be applying, and then you should be identifying through your programmatic response who are those collaborations and partnerships that you'll be working with. However, if you are a consultant and they're using, say, your Main Streets Association as the fiscal sponsor, then they should be applying, and they will just be using you kind of for like the financial backing and the nonprofit status. Did that make sense? And did that answer your question?
It does. Oh, that was a perfect response.
Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. And then Jean, I see your question here. Is there any criteria to the number of equity businesses that need to be helped? Yes. There's not criteria in the application itself. I would also too, because Jean, you wrote here, I would hate for someone to give this all to one business. I would hate that too. So we are definitely looking for this to be expansive opportunity for all of our equity applicants to apply for and receive through your program, your proposed program. Where it gets tricky is that we have to see what you're proposing first. And I can't tell you legally, I can't say you have to give it to these businesses. And so I can only outline, and that's why I made sure to mention this, what we've considered eligible for the grant funding and technical assistance in previous iterations, because I cannot legally say you have to give it to this many people or these specific people. But if you have the eligibility, criteria, we can coordinate with you if you're chosen to say, yes, these people have been, where did my word go? My brain just went completely blank, but these people have been approved or considered equity applicants previously. So I cannot, and I've been told numerous times while creating this opportunity by our law department that I cannot tell you a list of businesses or who they are or who you have to distribute this to. There are a number of equity applicants, and Danielle, that's a great question too. This also goes into Jean's answer that there are a number of applicants, but it will depend on what you are proposing and who's chosen, how many of them there are. Definitely not like 400. Definitely not like 400. There's not that many. There are lower than 100, lower than 100. But people apply every day. And sometimes people are not applying. And so again, like I was stipulating, there are certified equity applicants, there are pre-certified equity applicants. And so we would have to see the submissions and then work with the group to identify, who your kind of like cohort for your proposed program is and who they would be. And it's just dependent on, what you write into your criteria. That is one of the questions. What is your proposed criteria for applicants applying for your proposed program? So we would just have to see what you propose and then work from there. Unfortunately, I cannot answer that question right now. I could, but then I'll be telling you what to do, and I cannot legally do that. Any other questions around the application itself? It is pretty straightforward. Again, basically 10 questions in total. Nine questions in total, 7 in the programmatic response section or program proposal section, and then 2 in your budget section. And then the rest of it is background information. There is another question. Is there any criteria to the number? Oh, no, I scrolled up in the chat. There's not another question.
I have a question.
Yes, who is speaking?
LJ.
Oh, okay, yes.
I just got booted off, but I dropped those questions in the Q&A. I just wanted to know, did you get them or did they erase because I got booted off?
I think they erased. Was it
Okay.
about the licensing fees?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I answered those and didn't even notice you were gone. But I'll definitely answer them again. So LJ did ask, how much are licensing fees with the city, and can I include it in the budget plan? The answer is yes, you can include it. Licensing fees differ. There are a number of licensing fees, though. I would have to coordinate with our licensing team and then put those in this FAQ for you to see them. But there are a number of different licensing fees. I can't rattle them all off right now, but they include an application fee, they include ISD fees, they include renewal fees. And I was indicating that there are a number of applicants on this call. So if they want to, give you some insight into the fees that they pay, they absolutely can, but you can absolutely include those in your proposed program. Any other questions? We're almost at 6, which is fine. It is 555 if you believe in numerology. But any other questions? I'm still here. I'm free to keep answering. But as you are applying, if you do have questions about Wise Hive itself, there are a number of those application resources here listed on our website. Peter and His team through the procurement department is available for assistance. They also have a separate FAQ. There's a guide listed here, and there's links to the Wise Hive FAQ in our FAQ for the program itself. But if there are not any other questions, I will, go ahead and end us. But this recording will also live on our website, and I will follow up with every attendee just to do a quick recap and give you all the links and a link to this video once it's posted on our website. That will probably happen tomorrow, more than likely tomorrow. Or early Monday. I know some of you are like, that takes away time in which I need to apply, but all the other resources are already available. I just want to make sure that I'm able to give you a link to the video before I send you an email and then have to send you another email. Oh, there's another question. Will I be in the office next week to get an exact dollar amount for fees? Just want to detail with budget. Absolutely. I will get those added to the FAQ by tomorrow. So you won't have to wait until next week. And I could also follow with you directly, LJ. But yeah, I'll have that question answered in the FAQ by tomorrow.
And your contact information, can you put that in the comment section?
I sure can.
Thank you.
It is detailed everywhere, all around in the
All over the application. I'll find it there.
Yes, but I put my email there. My number is this. I'm pretty sure this is my office number. I'm pretty sure. I am not in the office on Thursday and Fridays. I work on Thursdays and Fridays, clearly, but I work from home on those days. So if you call that office number, you may not necessarily get me, but I'm always available by email, and I'm always available to jump on a quick call. The only thing at this juncture, I cannot give you any specific feedback on your application itself, or any personal insight or information that's not available to everyone. So if you have personal questions about like, did you see my proposal and what are you thinking? I cannot answer those, but anything else, I'm completely and 100% available to answer. And again, I keep offering them up on a platter, but Peter and his team are also fully and 100% capable and available to answer questions about Wise Hive. This is their thing, and did a great job of helping me put this application in that portal. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you again so much for joining. I cannot wait to see your proposals. I'm very excited. The deadline again is February 13th. We will be reviewing them after that fact over February, and then we will be awarding this grant to hopefully one of you on this call by sometime in March. That may change, but that is the timeline for right now.